Scripture readings will be taken from Exodus 3, 13 to 15. Let's read. Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and said to them, the God of your father has sent me to you. And they asked me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? And God said to Moses, I am who I am. And this is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. And God also said to Moses, say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. And this is my name forever, the name by which I am to be remembered from generation to generation. And this is the word of God.
Hallelujah. Welcome to the house of the Lord. And I'd like to give thanks to God for our praises that we sang this morning and the choir sang. What a great name the name of God is. Something about his name, even if we don't know the detailed meaning of his name, when we call upon his name, there's comfort, there's consolation, and there's power, and I believe there's healing in his name. And we are people who are called by his name, and we are the people that have the privilege to know his name and to call ourselves and call upon his name. And he is our Father. Amen. So no matter what kind of trouble and problems we might have, let us call upon the name of our God. And the Bible tells us that sometimes we just cannot articulate our emotions and our difficulties. And he says, just call upon the name of God. Say, God, help me. And that name is powerful enough to help us and heal us. Amen? So we are given that name. We have been studying about God. And last week we studied about the existence of God. Today we're going to ask the question, who is God? We believe. I hope you believe. I hope I did not trouble your faith last week. But I hope we still believe that God exists. If God exists, if we really believe that God is there, and we Christians claim that we know that God, and the Bible tells us that this God is a personal God, then who is he to you? You don't have to answer me right now, but ask yourselves, who is God to me? Do I know him? Do you know him? Who is he? What's his name? And that's what in today's passage Moses asked him, what is your name? And then, what is he like? Or what does he like? For instance, does he put whipped cream on his latte or not? Does he like, fruit toppings on his waffles or just whipped cream? What is he like? What does he like? If I know him, if I like him, if we love him, then we should know something about him. And the Bible tells us that we cannot know God because he's so big and he's invisible. However, we have learned through revelation, general revelation and special revelation, that we can come to know God according to how he shows us and teaches us about himself, especially through the Bible. And in the Bible, God presents his names. He gives us his names, like in today's passage. And there are other places where people call upon his name or call upon a description to go with his name, to describe who he is and how he is. Therefore, his names, God's names, represent his personality, if he has a personality, his character, what he is like to us. King David in the book of Psalms describes in many different ways what God has done to him and what God is to him. And we share his sentiments through our experience. And so David, for example, says God is loving kindness. He is loving kind. He is kind and he's loving. And sometimes we go through our life of trouble and experience, and we realize, wow, that's true. God is truly loving kindness. He is loving. He is forgiving. He accepts me, even me. And so we come to understand and agree with the meanings of His names. And so today we're going to, first part, we're going to think about the names of God that the Bible tells us. And there are so many, we cannot cover every one of them. And then we're going to think about the attributes of God. So first, God's name. God has very many different names, and we cannot describe God in one term, okay, in one sense, because He is so big and so great, and we can just conclude that God must be bigger than our understanding. Oh wow, I didn't know I gave them this. The name contains, okay. So what are these names? God's names in the Old Testament. First, God's names in the Old Testament. First is El. In the Old Testament, these names are mostly all of them are in Hebrew. Okay? El is the general and most simple name of God, most basic. But it means above all, powerful God. The only God. It contains has a connotation of the only God. Did you know, I think I mentioned last week, either during sermon or Bible study, that the God that we believe in, our God, is the God that throughout the history of mankind, most of the philosophers and theologians, and many different people of thinking and ideas have talked about. Whether they agree in the presence of existence of God or not, whether they're Christians or believers or Jews or atheists, this is the God that they have been talking about. They don't really discuss and argue about other gods. They don't really discuss about Hindu gods or Buddhist gods, Taoist gods. Every philosophical argument and debate is about this God. And to me, that in itself proves that our God is the only real God. Right? They don't really care much about other beliefs. I'm sure in their own regions and own context they do. But in general, even in the secular world, even in the philosophical world, the God that they have been talking about is this God, our God in the Bible. He's the only God, the Bible tells us. One God. Second name is Elohim, God the Creator. Genesis chapter 1 verse 1. It says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This God is Elohim. Okay. And this is the most frequently used name of God in the Old Testament. In Deuteronomy chapter 10 verse 17 it says, for the Lord your God is the God of gods and the Lord of lords, the great, the mighty, the awesome God who does not show partiality, nor take a bribe. When he says God of gods, it doesn't mean there are many other gods and he's the king, the bigger of them all. But it's an expression saying he's the only God. Okay? All the other gods are like the idols and false gods that people tend to believe in the Old Testament. And the third name is Jehovah. Jehovah, God who exists by himself. And in today's passage, when Moses was being sent by God to Israel, to save Israel from Egypt, Moses asks the question, what if they ask me, I will go and tell them, I am the God of your father. The God of your father sent me to you. The people will say, what's the name of your God? The cultural context is, because these people have been following the Egyptian beliefs of believing in different gods, and every god has a different name according to its function, its role. So the sun god gives the light and prosperity and success in crop culturing, in harvest. And so different names tell them about different functions and different roles of God. So that's what Moses knows, because he was trained and grew up in Egypt and the Egyptian palace. He knows how the people will think and perceive God. And so basically they will be asking, what kind of God is this? What role does he play? What's his name? So God says, I am who I am. He uncategorizes himself from any function or any role that any of the Egyptian god might have. And he says, I don't depend on anything. I am the God of your father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And he says, I am that I am. This in Hebrew literally means, I am and will be who I will be. So he says, I am the God of your fathers, meaning I am the God in the past. I am who I am the God in the present time, and I will be who I will be. I am the God in the future. Past, present, and future, I am the only God. And this name, he said, shall be remembered, generation after generation. Genesis chapter 2, verse 4, and then Exodus chapter 3, verses 14 through 15. And this is a name that is understood by the Israelites after the Exodus incident and throughout the biblical history. The God who redeems and the God who keeps his covenant. His name is Yahweh. Okay? And Yahweh, because the Bible, the commandments say, do not use God's name in vain, they started to refrain from saying the name Yahweh. It was too holy to put into our lips to say it. So the leaders in Israel's history have decided, let us use another name that refers to Yahweh. And they came up with Yahovah. It's a combination of the consonants from Yahweh and the vowels from the word Adonai, which means Lord. And combined, it becomes Yahovah. And later, through translation work, for English speakers, it became Jehovah. Okay? Because of the Germanic translations. Anyway, Yahweh, Jesus later comes, and he, through his teachings and his ministry, he refers himself to this name. And he calls himself, I am that I am. For example, John chapter 8, verse 58, Jesus said to them, truly, truly I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am. What's a correct English grammar if you were to say this? Before Abraham was born, you're supposed to say I was. Okay? But he said I am. And then the Jews picked up stones to throw at him, meaning they understood what Jesus meant. What Jesus actually meant is, before Abraham was born, Jehovah, I am the Jehovah. I am the Jehovah, I am the God that existed before Abraham was born. Okay? He was using the name of God that they dared not to put, even utter. Jesus referred himself as, I am. And God told Moses, I am has sent you. And Jesus says, I am. That I am is I am. I am that I am. Okay? That I am in the Old Testament is me. Basically, Jesus is saying, I am the God that saved your forefathers from Egypt. I am the God that promised Abraham his covenants. So Jesus is the Lord of redemption and salvation. Jesus is the Lord who fulfills his covenant. Fourth name that I'm going to talk about is Adonai. Adonai. It means the Lord. For example, if you have an English Bible, some of your Bibles will distinguish in English term. They will never, most of the Bibles will not say Yahovah or Yahweh. it will just say Lord. In place of the Hebrew word Yehovah, Hebrew name Yehovah, in English they converted it to Lord. And so and Yadonai, they translated Lord. To distinguish the two, for Yehovah, they spelled it L-O-R-D, all capital letters. Do you call it small caps? L is capital letter, O-R-D is small caps. And then Adonai L is capital letter, and O-R-D is small case letter, lowercase. If you read through the Bible, you will notice. For example, maybe Genesis chapter 15, verse 1. If you can turn. This doesn't reflect it on the screen, so you have to turn your Bibles to Genesis chapter 15, verse 1. It says, after these things, the word of the Lord. Does your Bible have L-O-R-D, all caps? That's Yahweh, okay? or Yehovah. Came to Abraham in a vision, saying, do not fear, Abraham, I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be great, very great. Abraham said, O Lord God. When he says, verse 2, O Lord God, that Lord, it's not all caps. That's Adonai. Understood? Confused? You don't have to understand to be saved. So, basically, Yahweh and then Adonai is Lord. And Psalm 145, verse 14, also uses both. And the fifth name. Now there are other names, such as this one, that is a description added to God's name. Okay? So El Elyon. El is the name of God. It means God. Elyon means most high. God most high. God most precious. El Elyon. And this is the name that Melchizedek used in Genesis chapter 14, verse 18, to bless Abraham. God most high. And then there's El Shaddai, meaning God Almighty, source of all happiness, comfort, and joy, all-powerful God. And this name is used used during the Exodus, trying to tell the Israelites there is nothing impossible to God. Exodus chapter 6, verse 3. And then El Olam, eternal God, God everlasting. El Olam. Genesis 21, verse 33. And there are other modifiers like Jehovah Yireh or Jehovah Jireh. God of providence, God who sees beforehand and prepares. God who provides. Jehovah Jireh. That's in Genesis chapter 22, verse 18 and the following. And then Jehovah Shammah. Jehovah Shammah, verse 15 and the following. And Jehovah Shammah is Ezekiel 48, verse 35, the last verse of Ezekiel, meaning the Lord is there. The Lord hears. And there's many different descriptions. Jehovah Rapha, the Lord of healing, the Lord who heals. Jehovah Shidkenu, meaning the Lord who is righteous. And so on. And these names are confessions. And these names appear and are called by people of God after they have personally experienced the presence of God. So let me ask you, if you were to put a name to God, what would your description of God be? In one word. Who is the God? Is it God fearful? God questionable? God wonderful? And so we sang these praise songs Wonderful name of God. Beautiful name of God. Powerful name of God. Who is God to you? Secondly, let's think about the names of God used in the New Testament. Mainly only two. First is Theos, which means God. Greek word meaning God. Mark chapter 5 verse 7 and Acts 17:24. And second is Kyrios. Kyrios, not Curious George. It's Kyrios. Kyrios. Like Adonai or Jehovah, it means Lord. Genesis 45 verse 5. Psalm 56 verse 13. And Matthew 10:29. John 6:33. Don't show this yet. There's one name that is common in both the Old Testament and the New Testament. Can anybody take a wild guess? One name that is common in the Old Testament and the New Testament is Father. Father. In Hebrew it's Ab, in Greek it's Pater. Father. And that is probably the most common name that we use to refer to our God. And I believe it's inclusive of all these names. Our God who is good, who provides. Our God who is most high. Our Father. Matthew chapter 11 verse 25 through 27. And Jesus called God Father, Ephesians 3:15. And John 1:12. And many other places. Now we know that in the Bible, in the commandments, God said, do not use my name in vain. Let us think about that today, briefly. What does that mean? The Israelites took that literally and decided, let's not use his name, but let's use another name so that we don't use his name in vain. Now, is that a good way to prevent using God's name in vain? So you use a different name to refer to God. That's still the name of God. And if you use it the wrong way, you're still using it in vain. Even though you did not use the actual word Yahweh. Right? We are people who are called by God's name. As Daniel prayed in Daniel chapter 9. We represent God's name. Can I take one more step and say, you are God's name to many people? You represent God's name. We call ourselves Christians. We use the name Christ to refer to us. And Christ is a Greek name for Messiah. It's a Greek word that means the same as the Messiah, the anointed one. We represent God's name. We don't have to use it in vain only in our language. When we do things and live our life, and when we speak, that all represents God's name. And so let us ask ourselves, in my action and my words, am I representing God correctly? Am I telling people the proper name of God? And in a different case, a different aspect, when somebody uses your family name, meaning your parents' name, so when somebody utters your parents' name and says bad things about that name, what would you do? Oh yeah, okay, go on. If somebody speaks about, even in English or U.S. culture, the worst curse or cuss word or swear word that you can say is something related to your parents. Okay? And I think in every culture, we protect our family name. We guard, and we take it personally to protect the name of our parents or our family. What about the name of God? Do we join in with those people in speaking about God's name? And sometimes we use God's name frivolously. We speak of, we use the name of God. Oh my God. What does that mean? Oh my Lord, my headache. We use God's name for a good sense of expression of my feelings. But I believe we need to protect God's name and use it when it's really, really important. When it's really, really calling for His power and name. And when we honor His name, I believe His name will be glorified in our lives. Because of the lack of time, you can show these verses. I'll call out the verses. Titus chapter 1 verse 16. They profess to know God, but by their deeds they deny Him, being detestable and disobedient and worthless for any good deed. 2 Timothy 3:5, Romans 2:24, the name of God is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. I pray that might not be our case. Leviticus chapter 5 verse 1, now if a person sins after he hears a public adjuration to testify when he is a witness, whether he has seen or otherwise known, if he does not tell it, then he will bear his guilt. We have to really be the people who witness and testify of the name of God. Isaiah 42 verse 8, I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not give my glory to another, nor my praise to graven images. I pray that Zion Church and everyone here may become people who can honor God's name. Amen. Through our works, through our lives, and through our actions and words. I pray that we may lift up the name of God. Secondly, second part, attributes of God. What is God like? Many times, the gods of the Greek myths or other myths have been presented as more of an anthropomorphic God. God who gets mad, gets angry, gets hates and fights, and very close in character and personalities as we ourselves. But our God seems to sometimes have those attributes, and sometimes has even greater attributes. And in theology, especially in Westminster Catechism, we are a Presbyterian church, so our roots go back to the West, and we follow the Westminster Catechism. And there's shorter catechism and longer catechism, but shorter catechism tends to have describe God of His communicable attributes. There are two attributes, communicable and incommunicable. Easier term is, communicable is something that, attribute that human beings can also have. Such as God is loving. Human beings can be loving. God is caring. Right? Things like that. And then there's incommunicable attributes. Those attributes that belong only to God. Something that cannot be shared with other people. So, we are going to think more about these incommunicable attributes today. Such as incomprehensible, everywhere present, knowing all things. So first, incommunicable attribute of God is independence. Several places in the Bible teaches us that God is absolutely independent and self-sufficient. That means, first, He doesn't need to depend on any creation. He doesn't have to depend on anything for His existence and for anything else. He doesn't have to depend on creation for any reason. Acts chapter 17 verse 24 and 25. The God who made the world and all things in it, since He is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples and made with hands, nor is He served by human hands, as though He needs anything, since He Himself gives to all people life and breath and all things. So he doesn't need anybody to move him or give him, provide for him. He is self-sufficient, independent. Job 41 verse 11 also. And it also means that he created everything. He's a beginning of all things. Revelation 4:11 and John 1:3. He is eternal. And so that's why we are able to believe in him. If I were told that our God has to depend on something, he needs to ask his parents about something, or he needs something from us in order to be God, I wouldn't believe in him. Because he is independent, because he is the Almighty, because he is who he is, that's why we can believe in him. Secondly, he is unchangeable. Also, we call it immutability of God. Scripture, the Bible shows us that God is unchanging in his being, in his perfections, in his purposes, and promises. And some of the verses are shown up there. Psalm 102 verse 27, Malachi 3:6, James 1:17. And Hebrews chapter 13 verse 8 says Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. But there are some passages in the Bible, some places, where it seems like God changes his mind. He said he's going to leave Israel and not walk with them anymore after the golden calf incident. And it was Moses praying and crying and even said, you take away my name blot out my name from the book of life and save these people. Then it seems like God is appeased a little bit and changes his mind. Is that what he did? Nineveh. He was going to judge Nineveh. And Jonah went and preached, and they repented, and so God saved them. Did God change his mind? It seems like sometimes God regrets also. God added 15 years to Hezekiah's life. He was going to kill him right away, but he repented. So did he change his mind? Does that make him not unchanging or immutable? One thing is, he is unchangingly forgiving. That is not changing. Another thing is, maybe that was the whole thing was his plan. Maybe he never really wanted to destroy them. And most of the times, he speaks to the people according to what they need to hear for salvation. He guides them one by one. He doesn't tell them what he plans at the end. He tells them what they need right now. And therefore, depending on the different changes of human understanding and human situations, God speaks to them accordingly. But God himself, above his loving kindness, his forgiving, his mercy, is not changing. The third, omnibenevolence. Omni means all. Benevolence means good. Okay? All good. God is the final standard of good, and that all that he is and does is worthy of approval. Some passages speak about God's goodness. No one is good but God alone. Luke chapter 18 verse 19. The Psalms frequently affirm that the Lord is good. For example, Psalm 100, chapter 100 verse 5. Psalm 106 verse 1 says, "Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good." Psalm 34 verse 8, "Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good." And James chapter 1 verse 17 tells us, James 1:17 tells us, "Every good thing given and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shifting shadow. So God gives us what is good. Sometimes it seems like it's something that is not good, and we call that evil. When I spank my child, he calls it evil. Literally, one day they came to me and said, "Dad, when you are bad." And I'm like, when was I bad? It was the time when I was spanking them, when you were bad. From their perspective, that was bad. But from my perspective, I explained to them, this is a good thing because I don't want you to become bad people, and that's why I spank you today. They don't understand. They said, when you were bad. To us, sometimes, what's happening immediately is bad. It seems to be evil. But in all, okay, in the big picture, God gives us good. And let us believe that. I mean, all these attributes, I'm sure some of you have all kinds of arguments against it. It's okay. It's okay. Because God is, whether you believe or not. And He will, I pray, and you please do pray, that He will prove Himself to you. That He is good. Fourth, I'm digging deeper my trouble here. Omnitemporal. Okay? Omnitemporal. It's not a name of some tempura in a Japanese restaurant. Omnitemporal, meaning eternal. He's at all times at the same time. He's in the past, present, and future, all at the same time. Okay? God has no beginning or end or succession of moments in His own being. He is timeless. And so Psalm 90 verse 2 says, before the mountains were born, or you gave birth to the earth and the world, even from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. You see, when Jesus speaks about Himself, He's all present tense in the past, present, or future, present tense. Okay. Here too, you are God, even from before and present. Psalm 90 verse 4, for 1,000 years in your sight are like yesterday when it passes by, or as a watch in the night. 2 Peter 3:8 also says, to Him, one day is like 1,000 years, 1,000 years like a day. To God, all of time since creation is as if it just happened. Time was created by God. And therefore, God sees and knows all events, past, present, and future. That's why we're able to believe in Him. That's why we, who do not know even 1 second in the future, now we know, but we don't know next second. We don't know what's going to happen an hour later. We don't know what's going to happen next year. But God knows. And God has seen our future, and He's telling us, sometimes warning us, what to do. And that's why He's the God that we can obey. For example, blind people, people who cannot see, they have to depend on somebody who guides them and leads them because they're borrowing their eyes. Meaning, people who can see what's in front of them have to tell the blind person and warn them about up step, down step, or hazardous, whatever, cliff, free fall. They have to let them know. And they need, as a blind person, you have to trust them because if you don't want to die. For example, if a blind person is standing at the edge of a cliff, and one more step he's free fall. And the person standing next to him, who can see, says, don't take one more step because you will fall. If the blind person says, no, you don't know. I know better because I've been here. So if I am going to take my step, who's being dumb here? This blind person is being stubborn and dumb because he's not trusting the person that can see. And sometimes that is us. We cannot see the future at all. And God says, don't go that way. Or do this. And if we trust that God is the God that gives us good, then we should obey Him. But we sometimes argue with Him. No, I've been here. I've done this before. So I pray that we may trust that God sees our future. He knows our future. He knows our past. And He knows our present more than we do ourselves. Amen? Next is omnipresence. And omnipresence means He's everywhere. Just as God is not limited by time, He is not limited by space. He doesn't have size or spatial dimensions, and is present at every moment of space with His whole being. That doesn't mean it's the same as pantheism. Pantheism says, oh, this plant has divinity and so we can worship it. This bell has some kind of divinity. There's God, divinity everywhere. Our God is one God and one personal God. And it's not just some kind of divinity in an object. That's why people bow down to and worship the big trees and rocks. But our God is personal God that we can find everywhere when we seek Him. Wherever we go, whether we notice Him or not, He is there. Jeremiah 23 through 24. Because of the lack of time, we're not going to read everyone. Psalm 139 verses 7 through 10. Basically, there's nowhere in the entire universe, on land or sea, in heaven or hell, where one can flee from God's presence. Next is omniscience, all-knowing. In Job 37 verse 16, Job's friend Elihu says, who is perfect about God? God is the one who is perfect in knowledge. Apostle John says in 1 John chapter 3 verse 20, 1 John chapter 3 verse 20, he says God knows everything. Also 1 Chronicles 28 verse 9. And John 2:25. John 2:25 it says, and because He did not need anyone to testify concerning man, for He Himself knew what was in man. So here are a few examples of God's limitless knowledge. He knows what we need before we ask Him. Matthew 6:8. So does that mean we don't have to pray? Since He knows already what we need. We'll talk about that later, maybe during Bible study today. He knows the number of hairs on our heads. Matthew 10:30. He knows when we sit, when we rise, and what we think. Psalm 139 verses 1 and 2. He knows the words that we will say before we speak them. Psalm 139 verse 4. He knows the days of our lives before we are born. 139, Psalm 139 verse 16. He knows every possible future. 1 Samuel 23 verses 11 through 13. Now, here is what you've been waiting for. If He is omniscient and omnitemporal, if He's in the past, present, and future at one time, He knows our future. So then, what about our free will? How can we be free if God already knows what we're going to do? In that case, are we really free, or Is freedom just an illusion that God created for us so we can think that we are in control? If He knows what's going to happen, does He decide, knowing what's going to happen? So the philosophers say that God's omniscience and our free will cannot exist together. And so some theologians and some philosophers come with different ideas and explanations. And we're going to talk more about it during our Bible study today, about free will, and some next week. One possible response, I'm not saying that this is I agree with it, but this is one possible response, saying knowledge and causation are two different things. They don't have to overlap. Okay? Meaning, he can know, but he doesn't have to cause us to do it. For example, let's say there's a nice apple pie, and I leave it up to you in the room, and I go out, and I know you're going to finish it. Doesn't mean I cause you to finish it. When you see from far away a person playing by the train tracks, rail track, and there's a train coming very close by and speeding, and you know that person is going to be hit, doesn't mean, just because you know, doesn't mean you caused it. So this is one argument. Of course, there's arguments against this too. But if God is omniscient, He cannot be wrong. So if He knows that you're going to finish that pie, can He choose not to finish the pie? That makes Him not omniscient. Right? So do you have any choice? That's a big question that is unanswered until today. So we're going to struggle with it. I don't know if I'll dig deeper or save my life, but we will think about it. Quite exciting during our Bible study and next week. Next attribute is omnipotence. Okay? Omnipotence. All powerful. Speaking about God's sovereignty. God's omnipotence refers to His power to do what He decides to do. He can do what He decides to do. If He's God, whatever He wants to do, He can do. Right? Many passages in the Bible. Genesis 18:14. It says, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" It's a rhetorical question, meaning nothing is too hard for the Lord. Jeremiah also says, "Nothing is too hard for you." Jeremiah 32 verse 17. Ephesians 3:20, Paul says, God is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think. 2 Corinthians 6:18 and Revelation 1:8. 2 Corinthians 6:18 and Revelation 1:8. God is the Almighty meaning all powerful, possession of all power and authority. Angel Gabriel says to Mary, "With God nothing will be impossible." Luke 1:37. And Jesus says, Matthew 19:26, "With God all things are possible." And there are many contraries. And one question, you probably heard this question before. Can God create Can God create a rock so big that He cannot lift it? Yes? No. If God cannot create a rock that is so big that He cannot lift it, He's not omnipotent, right? Because He cannot create that rock. But if He can create the rock that He cannot lift it, still He's not omnipotent because He cannot lift it. How do we get out of this trap? See, these philosophers have nothing else to do than to create these weird questions. But this is one question that is kind of funny to us, but then sometimes we feel in our experience, can God not do this? Why is God doing that? If God is omnipotent, He has to be able to do anything and everything. But then the Bible tells us there are things that God does not do. God cannot do. First, He cannot lie. Titus chapter 1 verse 2. The unlying God, God who never lies. Also Hebrews chapter 6 verse 18. It is impossible for God to lie. Because of His benevolence. Because of who He is. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 13 says, He cannot deny Himself. God cannot do the things that will deny His attributes. In James chapter 1 verse 3, God cannot be tempted with evil, and He Himself tempts no one. Okay. Tempting and testing are two different things. Tempting is leading somebody to sin. God cannot lie, He cannot sin. He cannot deny Himself or be tempted by evil. He cannot cease to exist, and He cannot cease to be God. And He cannot in any way be inconsistent with any of His attributes. And the fact that God cannot sin is called divine impeccability. So, if you ask me, I can sin in 10 seconds. God cannot sin. Does that mean I can do something better than God? I can do something God cannot do? Does that take away from His omnipotence, omnipotent powers, abilities to do all things? No, because sin is actually lack of goodness and lack of righteousness. So it's a negative aspect. So when I say I can sin, it's a negative of benevolence. Something that I cannot do. I cannot be good in the eyes of God. So it's a negative, not a positive. It's like vacancy of goodness. So because everything that God does and God is inherently benevolent, not being able to sin is not a minus. Not being able to sin is actually a plus. Now in conclusion, we have learned about these attributes and the names of God. And these names and attributes need to become ours. In our heads, this is just a boring listing of what He is like. But God gave us these attributes and names, saying, I want you to experience this aspect of me. Because if we only try to understand with logic and our understanding of our heads, what we see here, the attributes of God, are internally inconsistent. Meaning, they cannot all be true at the same time. Some of the things that we ask about God. And so, if God cannot be all these, is God not true? We have to give up one thing to make one stand. We cannot have both, right? In our logic. And so some people give up God and in their faith of God. But as Christians, we try to find a way, a solution that will make all these things true all at the same time. If God is omnitemporal and He knows everything, how does God get surprised or change His mind, it seems like, or regret? How does He respond to our prayers? When we pray, are we just praying about what God was going to do or not going to do anyway? So these things, when it comes to reality, and we say, oh yes, God is omniscient, omnipotent, and all these things, but then, how do we understand all these all at the same time? How do we make sense out of these attributes of God? All in all, regarding all these speculations and questions that arise, many theologians have dealt with it, but Thomas Aquinas said this. He said, all this speculation of what God is like is just analogical predication. Basically, what he means is that we cannot predicate, assert anything about God because he's so far beyond our understanding. So when we speak about God, we never really say anything that is true. Instead, we have to speak entirely in analogies because that's all we can do. Meaning, God is so big and so beyond our understanding, we are not capable of seeing the wholeness of God and understand everything about God. So God uses our terms, something, a concept that we can understand, to describe just a small portion, just one aspect of God at a time. And so, what we understand about him is not what he actually is, but we have to use analogies of what we understand in this world to be able to understand. So all these attributes and words and descriptions that we use are something that we are familiar with, but they do not sufficiently explain who God is. For example, people living in Singapore, when the temperature goes down below 15, what do we say? It's cold. I remember seeing Singaporeans or Orlandians or people from Orlando wearing thick jackets at 15 or 10 degrees above zero. But when you go to Moscow or Alaska, their concept of cold is something below 10 minus, right? So our concept, people have different concepts and different understandings of one thing, but they both say it's cold. Same word. Aquinas is saying, don't worry. Don't worry about all these puzzles because none of these that we say about God is more than an approximation, a little analog that our tiny little minds can come up with so that we can talk about an infinite being. But God is our master. God is greater than all. When we say something is good or bad, we have our own standards that are set up through our limited experience, understanding, and perception. And we try to judge God through that. But God is greater than that. And as a finishing remark, I'd like to take you back to the fall of Adam and Eve. When they fell, they saw themselves naked. They had nothing. Let's compare that to our knowledge. Nothing. And then they made themselves coverings with fig leaves. Very temporary, very fragile. That's our knowledge. That's what we can understand. That's how we can describe God and understand God. But God made them a garment of skin that lasts and that can cover. And we have to seek God for understanding. Many times, people try to come to God after understanding. But God is spirit, and what we know through the Bible is taught to us, and that knowledge becomes understanding in us through the Holy Spirit. And so sometimes you might not agree, but this knowledge, understanding of God comes after we believe. God, we have to believe in God and have a relationship with God in order for God to teach us and show us what He is like. If we wait until our little minds can understand Him before we can believe and trust Him, it might never happen. Because He's too big for us to understand. So I pray that we may understand, we may come to understand God, not pick and choose what attribute I like, or what name I like, or what part of the word I like, but let us try to understand and accept who He is. And our God, who is, we saw His attributes and His names. God is who is all good and who is all powerful. We represent that name. And I pray that that power and that benevolence, God's awesomeness, that attribute may be shown in our lives and in us.